The neon haze of Seoul's underbelly clung to the air like a bad debt, thick with the scent of cheap whiskey and cigarette smoke. Beneath the sprawling Han River bridges, where the city's pulse thrummed above in oblivious rhythm, lay the forgotten veins, warehouses repurposed for deals that never saw daylight. Tonight, in a cavernous space lit by flickering sodium lamps, the auction unfolded like a ritual from another era. Chain-link fences rattled faintly from the vibrations of passing trucks overhead, and the low hum of generators drowned out the occasional drip of condensation from rusted pipes. Ji-yeon gripped her younger sister Soo-min's hand under the dim spotlight, their fingers slick with nervous sweat. At 24, Ji-yeon had always been the shield, the one who patched up their father's drunken brawls and whispered promises of escape to Soo-min during sleepless nights. Now, dressed in ill-fitting silk dresses, scavenged from a thrift bin, red for Ji-yeon, black for Soo-min, they stood on a makeshift stage of splintered crates exposed to a room of shadowed faces. Their father, Mr. Han, paced at the edge, his face gaunt and twitching, eyes darting like a cornered rat. He owed the wrong people, rival tongs from Busan's docks, the kind who collected with knives instead of ledgers, and this was his desperate bid to square it. "Ladies and gentlemen," the auctioneer barked into a crackling microphone, his voice echoing off concrete walls slick with humidity. "We start with Lot 1. Soo-min Han, 19, untouched virtue, perfect for a discerning collector. Bidding opens at 5 million won. Murmurs rippled through the crowd, 30 or so men in tailored suits and cheap leather jackets, their faces half hidden by the brim of fedoras or the glow of burner phones. Ji-yeon scanned them, heart pounding against her ribs. She could smell the river's dank rot seeping through cracks in the foundation, mixing with the metallic tang of fear. Soo-min trembled beside her, her wide eyes fixed on the floor, where scuffed boots shuffled like predators circling. Mr. Han avoided their gaze, wiping his brow with a stained handkerchief. He'd sold their mother's jewelry last month, then the family car. But debts to the Black Lotus syndicate didn't pause for tears. "It's for your own good," he'd slurred earlier that evening, shoving them into the back of a dented Hyundai. Ji-yeon had wanted to run, had maps of back alleys to Incheon's ports tucked in her mind, but Soo-min's cough, a remnant of last winter's pneumonia, rooted them. Escape meant exposure, and in Seoul's criminal web, exposure meant graves by the riverside. The bids climbed sluggishly. 6 million. 7. A fat man in the front row licked his lips, raising a bejeweled hand. Ji-yeon's stomach churned. She squeezed Soo-min's hand harder, whispering, "Look at me, not them. We're getting out of this." But how? The exits were guarded. 2 burly enforcers with earpieces and holsters, their radios hissing static updates. Cameras, cheap CCTV rigs wired to a laptop on a side table, swept the room lazily, their red lights blinking like indifferent eyes. Then the double doors at the back groaned open, letting in a gust of cool night air laced with exhaust fumes. Silence fell like a guillotine. He entered alone, but the shift was immediate. Bodies straightening, whispers dying. Kang Min-ho, the iron serpent of the Korean underworld, moved with the deliberate grace of a man who owned the shadows. At 38, he was a legend whispered in triad dens from Tokyo to Los Angeles. The boss who'd clawed the Han River smuggling routes from Japanese yakuza, enforcing a code that spared innocents but crushed betrayers without mercy. His black overcoat hung open over a crisp white shirt, unbuttoned at the collar to reveal a faint scar tracing his jaw, a souvenir from a dockside ambush 5 years back. Dark eyes, sharp as obsidian, swept the room, and the auctioneer faltered mid-call. "Mr. Kang," the auctioneer stammered, bowing low. "An honor. We're just—" Min-ho raised a gloved hand, silencing him, his gaze locked on the stage, on the sisters. Ji-yeon met it unflinching, her chin lifting in defiance, while Soo-min shrank closer. Something flickered in his expression. Recognition? Pity? Or calculation? He stepped forward, boots echoing on the oil-stained floor, and the crowd parted like water before a storm. Mr. Han blanched, stammering, "Sir, this is a private—" "Private!" Min Ho's voice was low, velvet over steel, carrying without effort. "Your debts are public knowledge, Han. And this circus, an insult to the rivers we all drink from." He stopped at the stage's edge, pulling an envelope from his coat, thick, sealed with black wax. "Both girls, no bid. They're under my protection now." Gasps rippled. The fat bidder protested, "Hey, I was up to—" Min Ho's head turned fractionally, and the man wilted. Escalation isn't wise tonight. His security detail, 4 shadows materializing from the wings, earpieces buzzing, flanked the stage. One nodded to the guards, who stepped aside without a word. Mr. Han lunged forward, desperate. "They're mine to— Please, the tongs will kill me." "Then pay your dues like a man," Min Ho replied, tossing the envelope at Han's feet. It split open, spilling 1 notes, enough to cover the debt twice over. "Or don't, but touch them again, and the river claims you." He extended a hand to Ji-yeon first, his grip firm but not bruising as she hesitated, then stepped down. Su-min followed, clinging to her sister's side. As they were ushered toward the doors, Ji-yeon's mind raced. Why them? Min Ho's world was warehouses like this one, but grander, penthouses overlooking the Han, convoys of black Mercedes slicing through traffic. She'd heard the stories, his code against harming the vulnerable, born from losing his own sister to a rival's raid a decade ago. But protection from a Mafia boss. It felt like trading one cage for another. Outside, the night air hit like a slap, rain-slicked asphalt gleaming under street lamps. 2 sedans idled, engines purring softly, wipers slicing the drizzle. Min Ho slid into the lead car beside them, the door closing with a solid thunk. "You're safe now," he said, voice softening just a notch as the convoy pulled away, tires hissing on wet pavement. Ji-yeon watched the warehouse shrink in the side mirror, her father's silhouette vanishing into the gloom. Safe, or just deeper in the current? And what price would this protection demand? The city lights blurred past, but in the rear view, a single tail light lingered too long, watching, waiting. The rain-slicked streets of Seoul blurred into streaks of neon as the convoy sliced through the night, the lead Mercedes humming with quiet power. Ji-yeon sat rigid in the leather seat, her fingers still intertwined with Su-min's. The younger girl's breaths coming in shallow bursts. The car's interior smelled of polished wood and faint cologne, Min Ho's, she guessed, cutting through the lingering dampness from the warehouse. Outside, the Han River's dark expanse flickered past, its surface rippling under the glow of distant bridges, a reminder that the city never slept, especially not its undercurrents. Min Ho leaned back against the door, his profile sharp against the passing lights, watching them with an intensity that felt like a spotlight. "You don't have to look so guarded," he said finally, his voice low and even, as if discussing the weather. "Your father's mess is cleared. The Black Lotus won't touch him now, not after this." Ji-yeon turned to him, her red dress creased and clinging uncomfortably. "Cleared? You bought us like livestock. What's the difference between that and the auction?" Her words came out sharper than intended, fueled by the adrenaline still buzzing in her veins. Su-min whimpered softly, pressing closer, her black dress rumpled like a shadow. A ghost of a smile touched Min Ho's lips, but it didn't reach his eyes. "The difference is choice. Stay under my roof until the dust settles, or walk away and face whatever scraps your father left behind. I've seen girls like you end up in worse spots, Busan's back alleys, or shipped off to Macau clubs." He glanced at the driver, a stoic man with a shaved head and a tattoo peeking from his collar, who nodded imperceptibly into the rear view. "But you stood tall back there. That takes spine." Su-min lifted her head, her voice a fragile thread. "Why us? You could have just paid him off and left." Her cough rattled faintly, a dry echo of her fragility, and Ji-yeon's hand tightened protectively. Minho's gaze softened fractionally as he looked at her. "Because I've lost someone to desperation like that. My sister, years ago. A rival Tong auctioned her off to settle a score. I was too late." He paused, the scar on his jaw catching the dashboard light. "Han's debt? It's tied to old roots I control. The Tongs from Busan are pushing inland, testing boundaries. Your father crossed lines he shouldn't have. Taking you out keeps things clean." The car slowed as they approached a gated compound on the river's edge, high-rises giving way to fortified luxury, black iron fences topped with razor wire, subtle cameras swiveling in the shadows of manicured pines. The gates parted with a hydraulic whisper, and the convoy glided into an underground garage, tires echoing off concrete pillars. Sodium lights buzzed overhead, casting long shadows that danced like unspoken threats. Ji-yeon caught a whiff of motor oil and exhaust, mixed with the faint, clean scent of rain-soaked earth from a nearby vent. As they stepped out, two more of Minho's men materialized, flanking the elevator without a word, their earpieces crackling softly. One carried a medical kit, glancing at Su-min's pale face. "Boss, she needs checking," he murmured, his accent thick from the provinces. "Handle it," Minho replied, gesturing to the sisters. "Upstairs, penthouse level, private access only." The elevator doors slid open with a chime, revealing mirrored walls and a faint hum of surveillance tech. Ji-yeon hesitated, scanning the buttons. No ground floor, no service levels visible, just a single panel for the top, secured by a biometric scan, Minho's thumb pressing against a glowing pad. The ascent was smooth, silent except for Su-min's occasional sniffle. Ji-yeon's mind raced. This wasn't escape, it was relocation to a gilded cage. The penthouse doors parted into a sprawling space, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Han, where barges ghosted through the mist like smuggling phantoms. The air inside was warmer, scented with jasmine from a diffuser, but the luxury felt armored, reinforced glass, motion sensors blinking in corners, a wall of screens displaying feeds from docks and warehouses. A woman in a crisp uniform, nanny, doctor, approached with a tray of tea and pills. "For the cough, miss," she said softly, her eyes downcast. Su-min took the cup gratefully, but Ji-yeon intercepted the vial, sniffing it warily. No scent, just sterile promise. Minho shed his overcoat, revealing the tailored lines of his frame, and poured himself a scotch from a crystal decanter. "Rest here tonight. Rooms are down the hall, separate if you want space. Guards rotate every 4 hours. Feeds cover the perimeter." He handed Ji-yeon a burner phone, sleek and anonymous. "One number, mine. Use it if anything feels off." She pocketed it, her defiance cracking just enough to ask, "Off how? Your world's all off." He chuckled dryly, swirling his glass. "Fair, but listen, those Busan Tongs don't forget a slight. Your father's ledger? It mentioned shipments, counterfeit parts through Incheon, rerouted to my lines. They think he double-dipped. If they come sniffing, it's not just him they'll hit." His eyes met hers, holding steady. "You're not property, Ji-yeon, but you're in the game now. Play smart." Su-min, medicated and drowsy, was led away by the attendant, leaving Ji-yeon alone with him in the vast living area. The city lights twinkled below, but a storm was brewing, thunder rumbling distant over the river. She paced to the window, spotting the convoy's taillights pulling out below, but one sedan lingered at the gate, engine idling. "That car," she said, pointing. "It followed us from the warehouse." Minho joined her, his reflection merging with hers in the glass. He pressed a panel, and a screen flickered to life, grainy footage from the garage cam. The lingering car was a nondescript Kaya, plates obscured by mud. "Not one of mine," he murmured, his hand brushing her arm as he zoomed in. A figure in the driver's seat shifted, face hidden by a cap, but a glint. Jewelry. A phone caught the light. Busan's calling card. Sloppy. Tension coiled in Ji-yeon's chest, the room suddenly feeling smaller. So we're not safe here? Safe enough, he said, but his voice hardened. I'll handle it. Stay put. He stepped away, murmuring into his own phone. Coordinates, rotations, a quiet order for eyes on the river routes. As he did, Ji-yeon's gaze drifted to a side table, a leather-bound ledger, half open, pages filled with coded entries, shipping manifests, dates aligning with her father's debts. One name jumped out, a contact in the tongs, circled in red. Before she could look closer, a blackout hit, lights dying with a pop, plunging the penthouse into shadow. The storm outside roared closer, rain lashing the windows like frantic fingers. Alarms should have blared, but silence reigned, broken only by the distant whine of a jammed generator. Minho froze, hand on his phone. Power surge, he said, but his eyes scanned the dark, hand inching toward a hidden drawer. Or sabotage. Stay behind me. In the gloom, footsteps echoed from the hall. Sumin's room? Or something worse? And who had cut the feed just as that ledger's secret surfaced? The penthouse plunged into an inky void, the storm's fury amplifying every creak and gust against the reinforced windows. Ji-yeon's pulse thundered in her ears, drowning out the rain's relentless tattoo. She backed toward the wall, her bare feet silent on the cool marble floor, eyes straining against the darkness. Minho's silhouette shifted ahead of her, a darker shape in the black, his hand disappearing into the drawer she'd glimpsed earlier. The metallic click of a pistol being drawn cut the air like a blade. "Stay low," he whispered, voice steady but laced with the edge of a man who'd danced this dance before. The footsteps from the hall grew deliberate, slow, measured, not the frantic patter of Sumin roused from sleep. Ji-yeon's mind flashed to the ledger on the table, its pages now lost in shadow, but the circled name burned in her memory. Park Ji-sung, a mid-level Tong enforcer from Busan, tied to those counterfeit shipments her father had botched. A faint beam sliced the gloom, a penlight from the hall, bobbing like a predator's eye. Minho moved first, fluid and predatory, crossing the room in 3 strides to press against the jam. "Who sent you?" he called out, low and commanding, the pistol's barrel glinting faintly in the storm's intermittent flashes. The figure paused, the light swinging wildly. "Boss, it's me, Tae-woo," came a voice, strained but familiar. The shaved-head driver from the convoy. Relief flickered, but Ji-yeon caught the hitch, the unnatural tremor. Tae-woo's accent had been thicker earlier, rough from the countryside. This mimicked it too cleanly, like a rehearsal. Minho didn't lower his guard. "Code word," he demanded. The penthouse's backup systems humming faintly to life. Emergency LEDs flickering on along the baseboards, casting a blood-red glow that painted the walls like a crime scene. The air thickened with the ozone tang of fried circuits, the generator below whining in protest. "Serpent's bite," the figure replied, stepping into the light, but as the LEDs steadied, Ji-yeon saw it. The man's collar lacked the tattoo, his posture too stiff, eyes darting to the windows rather than the boss. An imposter. Sloppy work, but in the blackout's chaos, it might have bought time. Minho fired once, the suppressed shot a muffled cough that barely registered over the thunder. The figure crumpled, clutching his leg, the penlight rolling away to illuminate a cheap knockoff earpiece. Busan tech, jury-rigged with a frequency jammer to spoof the guard's rotations. "You think a blackout fools me?" Minho growled, advancing. Park's dogs, sniffing too close. Ji-yeon darted to the side table, her fingers fumbling in the dim red light for the ledger. Pages rustled like dry leaves. She flipped to the circled entry. Art slamming. Manifests detailed crates of fake engine parts, rerouted from Incheon docks to Minho's legitimate shipping fronts, her father's signature scrawled at the bottom, double-dipping for the tongs. But below it, a handwritten note in faded ink. Ji Sung demands daughters as collateral, auction cover for extraction. Her father's desperation wasn't just debt. He'd bartered them to buy time from rivals, dragging Minho's name into the mess by forging ties to his roots. The impostor groaned, dragging himself toward the hall. "You'll drown in this, Kang. The river takes all traitors." His words slurred, but the threat hung heavy, echoing the boss's own code, twisted like a knife. Minho hauled him up by the collar, slamming him against the wall with controlled force. "Tell Park the girls are off limits. My code stands. Innocents don't pay for fools' games." He ripped the earpiece free, crushing it under his boot, the plastic snapping like brittle bone. Outside, lightning cracked, illuminating the Han's-churning waters, where a speedboat's wake cut unnatural against the current. Scouts, perhaps, timing the sabotage. Ji-yon clutched the ledger, stepping forward. "This says my father planned it, us as bait to pull you in, settle his side deal with the Tongs." Her voice cracked, betrayal sour on her tongue. Autonomy warred with the safety Minho offered. She'd shielded Su Min from their father's rot, but this web ensnared them deeper. "We're not just witnesses, we're the leverage." Minho's eyes met hers in the red glow, a flicker of something raw, respect or the shadow of his own lost sister, crossing his features. He zip-tied the intruder's wrists with a cord from the drawer, then tapped his phone, the screen's blue light harsh. Backups en route. Garage feeds show 2 more shadows slipped in during the cut, jammed the service elevator. He glanced at her, the pistol now holstered but his stance coiled. "You read that right. Han's playing both sides, thinking I'd clean it up, but loyalty's earned, not bought." From the hall, Sumin's voice pierced the tension, muffled and fearful. "Ji-yon, what's happening?" The younger sister emerged, wrapped in a silk robe from the guest room, her cough subdued, but eyes wide with the penthouse's eerie crimson hue. The attendant hovered behind her, face pale, hands trembling. Had she been in on it? No, her behavioral tell was fear, not guile. Eyes down, fingers twisting her apron. "Stay with her," Minho instructed Ji-yon, nodding to the attendant. "Lock the bedroom suite. Biometric overrides in the panel." He moved toward the elevator access, but paused, his hand lingering on Ji-yon's arm, warm and grounding amid the chaos. "This isn't your fight, but if you run now, the Tongs will hunt. Trust the code. I protect what's mine, not as property, but as family." She nodded, the word family echoing oddly in the storm-lashed space, pulling her toward him despite the suspicion gnawing at her independence. As he vanished into the service stairs, the backup lights steadied, revealing scuff marks on the marble, fresh from boots that didn't belong. Ji-yon herded Su-min back, sealing the door with a hiss of hydraulics, the ledger tucked under her arm like a forbidden talisman. But through the suite's one-way glass, she watched the garage feeds on a wall tablet, 2 figures slipping between pillars, shadows merging with the idling sedans. One paused, checking a burner phone, its screen glowing with a map of the compound, routes marked in red. The storm raged on, blacking out sections of the city grid. But who had fed them the access codes? And would Minho's men arrive before the infiltrators breached the penthouse core? If you're enjoying this story so far, tell us in the comments where in the world you're watching from. The storm's howl clawed at the penthouse windows, turning the Han River into a frothing beast below, its waves slamming against concrete pilings like accusations. Ji-yon pressed her back against the sealed suite door, the biometric panel's green light mocking her with its false security. Su-min huddled on the edge of the king-sized bed, the silk sheets rumpled beneath her, her cough returning in fits that echoed off the minimalist walls. The air in the room hung heavy with the scent of lavender from the diffuser, meant to soothe. But now it cloyed like a trap. Ji-yon's grip on the ledger tightened, its leather cover damp from her palms, the pages whispering secrets she wasn't sure she wanted to unravel. "Ji-yon, what's out there?" Sumin whispered, her voice fracturing the tension, eyes darting to the one-way glass, overlooking the garage feeds. The tablet mounted beside it flickered with grainy footage. Shadows darting between the sedans, their movements too coordinated for amateurs. One infiltrator paused under a flickering emergency light, pulling a slim tool from his jacket, a universal key fob, the kind that jammed RFID locks on high-end compounds. Ji-yon's stomach knotted. She'd seen similar gadgets in her father's pawned electronics, cheap imports from Shenzhen markets, effective against lazy security, but not Minho's layered defenses. "Stay quiet," Ji-yon murmured, sliding the ledger under the mattress for safekeeping. Her mind raced through the clues. The circled name, Park Ji-sung, wasn't just a contact. It linked to a manifest entry dated 3 weeks back, when her father had borrowed a warehouse slot on Minho's river route. Double-dipping. Indeed, funneling Tong counterfeit parts through legitimate shipments to mask them as auto exports. But why auction them now? Leverage, the ledger implied, to force Minho's hand and expose his roots to Busan's rivals. Their father hadn't just sold them, he'd weaponized them in a war of ledgers and lies. A distant thud reverberated through the floor, metal on concrete from the garage below. The tablet feed cut to static for a heartbeat, then stabilized, showing one infiltrator prying at a service panel, sparks flying like fireflies in the red-tinged gloom. The second man circled the idling Kia, burner phone in hand, its screen casting a blue pallor on his face. He typed rapidly, and Ji-yon leaned closer, squinting, coordinates flashing, synced to the compound's outer cameras. Someone inside had leaked the network. Perhaps the attendant, her trembling hands a tell of coercion, or a compromised guard rotating shifts. Sumin clutched Ji-yon's arm, nails digging in. "We should run. The balcony. There's stairs to the river path." Her eyes pleaded, the pull of autonomy clashing with the fear rooting them here. Ji-yon shook her head, glancing at the French doors leading to the terrace. Reinforced glass, but in this storm, a slip on wet stone, and the Han would swallow them whole. Minho's code echoed in her thoughts, protection as family, not chains. But trust felt like a gamble, her independence fraying against the web of betrayals. Before she could respond, the suite's intercom crackled to life. Minho's voice cutting through static. "Ji-yon, you locked in. 2 tangos in the garage. Park's crew, using a signal repeater to spoof the lifts. My team's breaching from the east gate, but hold position." His tone was clipped, the underlying steel of command masking any strain. In the background, she heard the low buzz of radios, orders barked in clipped Korean. "Flank the pillars. Check for jammers." She pressed the reply button, her voice steady despite the tremor in her chest. "The feed shows them at the service elevator. One's got a fob, might override the codes." A pause, then the faint sound of boots splashing through puddles outside, rain seeping through vents to pool on the marble. The ozone scent sharpened, mingling with the metallic bite of exposed wiring somewhere below. "Good eye," Minho replied, a hint of approval threading his words. "That's why you're not just a bystander. Stay off the glass. Reflective angles could give you away." The line went dead, but not before she caught the distant crack of suppressed fire, muffled by the storm. Ji-yon's pulse surged. She pulled Sumin to the floor. Behind the bed's solid frame, the carpet soft but no shield against bullets or blades. Minutes stretched like taut wire. The tablet feed jumped. Minho's men, 3 shadows in black tactical gear, emerged from a side stairwell, moving low and synchronized. One tossed a flashbang, the pop lost in thunder, disorienting the infiltrators. The first went down hard, tackled against a sedan, his fob skittering across oil-slicked concrete. But the second bolted for the elevator shaft, jamming a crowbar into the doors with a screech that pierced the audio feed. Sparks flew again, the mechanism grinding in protest. Ji-yon crawled to the intercom, thumbing it. They're forcing the service lift, straight shot to the penthouse hall. Her breath came quick, the room's confines pressing in. The storm's wind rattling the terrace like an impatient fist. Loyalty versus fear warred within her. Minho's world offered safety, but at what erosion of her own code, the fierce independence that had kept them alive through their father's chaos. Minho's response was immediate, laced with exertion. "Copy, we're closing. But if they breach, there's a panic room behind the wardrobe panel. Codes 0917, my sister's birthday." The vulnerability in that detail hit her like a wave, humanizing the Iron Boss amid the fray. He wasn't just possessing, he was sharing a piece of his legacy, the loss that forged his restraint. The feed showed the crowbar yielding, the elevator doors parting with a hydraulic groan, the infiltrator vanishing into the shaft. Minho's team pursued, but a blackout surge hit again, plunging the garage into total dark, the tablet feed dying to black. Silence fell, broken only by the rain's relentless drum, and Sumin's stifled sob. Ji-yeon hauled her sister toward the wardrobe, heart hammering. The air grew colder, vents whispering drafts from below, footsteps climbing the shaft, or Minho's extraction. As she punched in the code, the panel slid open with a soft whir, revealing a steel-lined nook stocked with water, a first aid kit, and a single pistol on a shelf. She hesitated, fingers brushing the grip, the weight foreign but tempting. But then, a new sound. The suite doors lock cycling, a faint click in the hall. Who had the override, ally or enemy? And if it was Minho, what secrets from the ledger would force a reckoning between his code and her father's treachery? The suite door's lock disengaged with a mechanical sigh, the sound slicing through the storm's muffled roar like a whispered threat. Ji-yeon froze in the panic room's threshold, her fingers hovering over the pistol's grip, the cool metal a stark contrast to the sweat beading on her palm. Sumin's breath hitched beside her, the younger sister's hand clutching her robe's edge, the silk whispering against the carpet. The air in the hidden nook carried a sterile chill, laced with the faint chemical tang of preserved supplies, but outside, the penthouse reeked of wet ozone and tension, vents pulling in the storm's fury from the river below. A sliver of red emergency light spilled from the hall as the door creaked open, casting elongated shadows that danced like intruders themselves. Ji-yeon yanked Sumin deeper into the panic room, thumbing the panel to seal it halfway, enough to peer out, but ready to slam shut. Her heart pounded a frantic rhythm, echoing the generator's distant whine as it struggled against the blackout's grip. The ledger's weight pressed against her thigh, tucked into her waistband now, its secrets a burning coal. Her father's forged ties to Minho's roots, the auction not desperation, but a calculated snare to drag the iron serpent into the Tong's crosshairs. Footsteps echoed, heavy, deliberate, splashing faintly in a puddle that must have seeped from the terrace seals. Ji-yeon! Minho's voice cut the dark, low and urgent, but laced with a gravelly edge from exertion. Relief flooded her, warring with suspicion. The override code was his domain, but in this web of leaks, trust was a fragile thread. He emerged into the red glow, coat torn at the sleeve, a fresh scrape blooming red across his knuckles, no blood on his hands. But the pistol holstered at his side gleamed wet from the rain. Behind him, the real Taewoo flanked, shaved head, slick, tattoo visible under the collar light, his own weapon drawn low. "Clear the hall!" Minho ordered Taewoo, who nodded and peeled off toward the terrace doors, radio hissing coordinates to the team below. Minho's eyes locked on Ji-yeon, scanning her and Sumin in the half-open nook. "You did right. Code worked." He stepped closer, the scent of rain and gun oil clinging to him, his presence filling the space like a shield against the storm's chaos. She nodded, emerging fully, the panic room door hissing shut behind her. "Yeah, but the feed died. Those two in the garage, did you get them?" Her voice steadied. But the pull of autonomy tugged. Handing over the ledger meant surrendering control, yet hiding it eroded the fragile alliance forming in this gilded storm. Minho's jaw tightened, the scar on his face pulling taut under the LEDs. One down, jammed his repeater mid-climb, the others pinned in the shaft, but Park's crew moves fast. They had inside intel. He glanced at the tablet, now flickering back online with auxiliary power, showing the garage in patchy static, Minho's men securing the sedans, the idling Kia towed aside, its plates revealed, Busan registry, mud scraped clean to expose the truth. Your father's mess runs deeper than debts. Shipments he rerouted, counterfeits masked as my exports. The Tongs want my routes exposed, use him as the patsy. Ji-yon pulled the ledger free, its pages crinkling like accusations in the dim light. The air between them thickened, the storm's thunder rumbling a bass note to their standoff. I read it. He didn't just owe, he bartered us to Park. Auction as cover to lure you, force a confrontation, collateral for his double dip. Her words hung heavy, betrayal souring her throat. Sumin whimpered from the nook's edge, her cough rattling like loose gravel, eyes wide with the fracture of their family's remnants. Independence had been Ji-yon's armor, shielding them from their father's rot, but here, in Minho's world, it felt like trading one prison for a fortress with locked gates. Minho took the ledger, his gloved fingers brushing hers, warm, steady, a spark amid the chill. He flipped to the marked page, eyes narrowing at the forged signatures, dates aligning with a recent Incheon manifest he'd buried under legitimate cargo. Sloppy for Han, but Park's handiwork. Subtle tells, like the ink bleed from cheap pens they used dockside. He closed it with a snap, the sound sharp as a safecracker's pick. My code doesn't bend for traitors, but innocents. His gaze shifted to Sumin, softening the iron in his voice. You two aren't paying for his greed. We'll extract the truth. Burners to trace Park's calls, guards on rotation to plug the leaks. Sumin stepped forward, her fragility a quiet defiance. And us? We're not staying in this. Whatever this is, hiding like ghosts. Fear laced her words. Loyalty to Ji-yon clashing with the allure of Minho's protection. The promise of stability her cough and their past had stolen. Minho knelt to her level, voice gentle but firm. Not ghosts. Family, if you choose it. My sister's loss taught me. Power's nothing without those you guard. He rose, turning to Ji-yon, the space between them charged, possessiveness veiled in restraint. But your call. Stay, and we end this tonight. Confront Han at dawn, dismantle the Tong's play, run, and the river's watchers find you first. Before Ji-yon could answer, the terrace doors rattled, wind or pressure from below. Tae-woo burst back from the hall, face grim. Boss, service shafts compromised. Third man's climbing. Cut the auxiliary line, no alarms. He's got thermite charges, aiming for the core supports. The tablet confirmed it. A blurry feed from a backup cam showed a figure rappelling the exterior wall, storm masking his ascent, a satchel slung low with tools that could melt steel in minutes. Minho's hand went to his pistol, the penthouse's hum faltering as another surge hit, lights dimming to pulses. Evac to the roof, choppers spooling. Ji-yon, Su-min, stick close. He ushered them toward the hall, but Ji-yon paused, spotting a subtle tell on the feed. The climber's burner phone, screen glowing with a text, coordinates matching the ledger's hidden addendum, a rendezvous point on the Han's east bank. As they moved, the building groaned under the assault, rain sheeting the windows like tears. Safety beckoned in Minho's shadow, but the ledger's ghosts whispered of deeper betrayals. Who in his inner circle had sold the thermite roots and would extracting Han reveal a turncoat closer than blood. The penthouse's corridors twisted like veins under siege. emergency LEDs pulsing red along the baseboards as Minho led the way, his boots thudding against the marble with urgent precision. Ji-yeon's arm was linked with Sumin's, the younger sister's steps faltering on the slick floor where rain had infiltrated through a compromised seal. The air hummed with the building's distress, vents sucking in gusts laced with the Han River's briny chill, mixed with the acrid bite of overheating circuits below. Thunder rolled overhead, vibrating the walls, while the structure groaned again. A low, seismic warning from the climber's thermite work eating at the supports. Stairs to the roof access, faster than the express lift. Minho barked over his shoulder, pistol drawn low, sweeping the shadows. Tae-woo brought up the rear, his radio crackling with fragmented updates. East teams pinned, jammers active 2 minutes to breach. The storm's howl seeped through the stairwell door as Minho shouldered it open, revealing a narrow flight ascending into gloom, railings cold and wet under Ji-yeon's grip. She glanced back, the tablet feed from her pocket, grabbed in haste, showing the garage in chaos. Sparks from the service shaft, Minho's men exchanging fire in suppressed bursts, the infiltrator's satchel glinting as he affixed charges. Sumin's cough erupted again, sharp and wet, echoing off the concrete steps. Ji-yeon pressed a hand to her forehead, feverish, the meds from earlier wearing thin. "We can't outrun this," she whispered, the pull of prudence clashing with the adrenaline-fueled trust in Minho's lead. Autonomy screamed to break away, find a service exit to the river paths she'd mapped in her mind. But the Ledger's revelations chained her. Their father's betrayal wasn't isolated. It implicated a leak in Minho's circle, someone feeding Park the thermite specs. Industrial grade, sourced from black market welders in Incheon shipyards. Minho paused at a landing, ear pressed to the steel door above. Chopper's rotors are up, 30 seconds. The climber's exterior, he'll hit the core before we lift. His eyes met Ji-yeon's, dark and unyielding, but a flicker of something deeper. Protectiveness born from his code, the vow to shield the vulnerable that his sister's death had etched into him. "You two first. Tae-woo, cover the descent if they flank." The door burst open to the roof, wind slamming into them like a wall, rain stinging their faces as sodium floods cut through the deluge. The helipad gleamed under swirling spotlights, a black Sikorsky idling with blades whipping the air into a frenzy, the pilot's silhouette hunched against the controls. But as they dashed across the gravel-strewn expanse, a new alert pierced the gale. Tae-woo's radio spat. "Boss, thermal scan from the east tower. Third Tango's not climbing. He's inside, rerouting the fire suppression." Ji-yeon's mind raced, piecing the logistics. The compound systems were networked, access codes shared via encrypted apps on burner phones. The Ledger had hinted at it, a side note in her father's scrawl, "Inner contact, pays in roots." Not just Park's play. A turncoat in Minho's ranks, selling overrides for a cut of the counterfeit trade. She shouted over the rotors, "The Ledger! It's not just Dad! Someone here fed them the jammer frex, the thermite paths. Check your rotations. Who's off shift tonight?" Minho's jaw clenched as he boosted Su-min toward the chopper's open door, the attendant from earlier scrambling aboard with a blanket. "Noted. We'll trace the breach logs once airborne." But doubt shadowed his words, loyalty to his crew fracturing under the suspicion. He turned to Ji-yeon, hand extended amid the whipping rain, water streaming down his scar like tears. "In now." She hesitated, the symbolic weight of the moment pressing. Stepping into the bird meant committing to his world, his code over her independence. Sumin's pleading eyes from the cabin tipped the scale. Family, fragile and found, outweighed the solitude of flight. Ji-yeon clasped his hand, the grip firm, electric in the storm, and vaulted aboard just as a muffled boom rocked the building below. The core supports buckled faintly, the penthouse floor tilting in the distance. Flames licking from a breached vent, controlled burn from the thermite, designed to collapse access without total ruin. The chopper lurched skyward, rotors thumping a defiant rhythm against the thunder, Seoul's skyline blurring into a neon smear as they banked over the Han. Ji-yeon strapped in beside Su-min, the cabin's leather seats creaking under the G-forces, the air thick with the scent of wet wool and jet fuel. Min-ho settled opposite, holstering his pistol and pulling a rugged tablet from a compartment, hacking into the compound's auxiliary feeds via a secure satellite link. Pilot, vector to the east docks, safe house there. Tae-woo, hail the ground team, extract Han from his bolt hole before Park's cleanup crew does. Tae-woo nodded, his face illuminated by the screen's glow, but Ji-yeon caught the subtle tell, a glance too long at his own burner, thumb hovering over a silent mode. Was it him? Or paranoia born of the night's betrayals? The ledger burned in her lap, pages fluttering in the cabin's draft. She flipped it open under the dim overhead, tracing a faded entry, a phone number, partial but matching the format of Min-ho's inner circle disposables. This Park's contact. It syncs with your shipping manifests, your driver from the warehouse run. He signed off on the reroute. Min-ho's eyes sharpened, leaning in as the chopper sliced through low clouds, the river's black ribbon snaking below like a vein of secrets. Tae-woo's been with me 5 years, clean, dim, but the doubt lingered. Ambition versus prudence tearing at his code, the restraint that spared innocence now tested by potential rot within. He tapped the number into his device, a trace initiating with a soft ping, cross-referencing call logs from the convoy's black box. Su-min stirred, blanket clutched tight, her voice a thread in the rotor's din. If it's one of them, can we trust anyone? Fear laced her words, the human conflict raw, bonds forged in crisis, but suspicion eroding the foundation of Min-ho's promised family. The trace beeped, hits on a tower near the warehouse auction site, time-stamped hours before the blackout. Min-ho's face hardened, the scar pulling taut. Not Tae-woo, but close, the night guard from the garage rotation. Park bought him with a Busan promise, safe passage for his family out of the Tong Wars. He pocketed the tablet, the revelation a bitter pill, his legacy of loyalty scarred anew. We'll burn that bridge at dawn. Han first, extract him, break the full ledger chain. The chopper descended toward the east docks, warehouses looming like silent sentinels under sodium haze, the storm easing to a persistent drizzle that pattered the canopy. As they touched down on a concealed pad, floodlights sweeping the perimeter, Ji-yeon felt the shift. Tension uncoiling into resolve, her hand brushing Min-ho's in the dim cabin. Protection wasn't possession, it was this, shared burdens in the shadows. But as the blade slowed, a distant engine growl cut the night, a convoy approaching from the river tunnel, lights off but unmistakable. Park's reinforcements or Min-ho's delayed extract. And if Han spilled everything under pressure, would the true turncoat's name drag them all into the depths? If this tale already has you hooked, hit the like button. It helps us bring more hidden stories to light. The chopper's rotors wound down with a dying whine, the drizzle pattering against the canopy like impatient fingers as the Sikorsky settled onto the concealed pad amid the east dock's labyrinth of cranes and shipping containers. The air reeked of salt and diesel, the Han River's sluggish current lapping at rusted pilings nearby, carrying the faint rot of forgotten cargo. Ji-yeon unstrapped first, her legs unsteady on the vibrating deck, the ledger still clutched like a talisman against her chest. Su-min followed, wrapped in the blanket, her cough muffled but persistent, eyes scanning the shadows where sodium lamps cast elongated pools of yellow light on oil-slicked concrete. Min-ho was already out, pistol in hand, signaling the pilot to keep engines hot. Tae-woo jumped down beside him, sweeping the perimeter with a compact submachine gun, his tattooed neck glistening under the floodlights. "Perimeter's quiet, boss. Drones show no heat sigs inbound yet," he reported, voice low over the idling hum. But Ji-yon caught the flicker in his glance, the subtle hesitation before holstering his sidearm, paranoia or a tell. The trace had cleared him, but trust fractured easily in this world of burner phones and forged manifests. "Move to the safe house, tunnel access, 2 blocks east," Minho ordered, ushering the sisters toward a chain-link gate camouflaged by stacked pallets. The wind off the river tugged at their damp clothes, carrying the distant growl of that approaching convoy, engines rumbling through the storm's aftermath. Headlights off, but tires hissing on wet asphalt from the tunnel mouth. Minho's radio crackled. "Extract Team ETA-5 mics. Hands hold up in a Namsan flop. 2 guards down. He's spooked." The boss's face hardened, the scar along his jaw a white line in the lamplight. "Parks play! Flush him out before we squeeze!" Ji-yon fell into step beside him, the gravel crunching underfoot. Her mind churning through the ledger's threads. The partial number traced to the garage guard, but a cross-reference in the margins hinted at deeper rot. A shipment code matching Taewoo's convoy logs from the warehouse run. Human error or deliberate? Ambition versus prudence warred in her. Reveal it now, risk fracturing the group mid-evac or hold back, preserving the fragile autonomy she'd carved in this chaos. "That growl, it's closing," she said, voice cutting the tension. "If it's Park, they'll bottleneck the tunnel exits. Your drones catch plates?" Minho nodded, pulling a rugged handset from his coat, its screen glowing with thermal overlays. Kia and Hyundai rigs, Busan plates, muddied but clean on scan. 3 vehicles armed heavy. "Not mine." He quickened the pace, the safe house looming, a nondescript warehouse fronting a reinforced bunker, its roll-up door grinding open on silent hydraulics. Inside, the air shifted to stale concrete and faint mildew, fluorescent strips buzzing to life overhead, revealing crates of non-perishables and a wall of monitors cycling dock feeds, shipping manifests, scrolling like digital ledgers, access codes blinking for guard rotations. Sumin sank onto a cot in the corner, the blanket pooling around her, while the attendant, cleared by a quick pat down, fetched water from a cooler. Ji-yon paced the narrow space, the ledger's weight a reminder of costs, injury to Minho's men, exposure of roots, the sacrifice of her independence for this found shelter. The turncoat, it's not just the guard. Look. She opened the book to a dog-eared page, dates aligning with the auction night. Your convoy driver signed off on a reroute that fed Park the compound's frex. Taewoo was on that run. Taewoo's head snapped up from securing the door, his face paling under the fluorescence. "What? That's bullshit. I cleared every manifest." His accent thickened with stress, hands balling at his sides, the tattoo shifting like a warning. Minho stepped between them, eyes narrowing, the code of loyalty straining against suspicion. "Easy. Traces don't lie, but neither do men I've bled with." He snatched the ledger, scanning the entry. The air thickening with the hum of generators outside and the distant engine roar echoing through the tunnel vents. A partial discovery hit like a cold wave. The signature wasn't Taewoo's, forged, the ink mismatch subtle, a behavioral tell from cheap forgeries Park's crew used dockside. But the real leak, a burner log tucked in the back, calls to a number inside Minho's organization, not Taewoo, but the pilot, grounded now with a mechanical on the chopper. Minho's fist clenched, the revelation costing him. A trusted wingman turned for Tong promises of relocation, selling thermite paths for a family's escape from Busan's crossfire. "Son of a—" Minho cut off, radio flaring. "Inbound confirmed. Park's vanguard cutting the east approach. Ground teams engaged at the tunnel mouth." Gunfire popped faintly, muffled by concrete, the monitors flickering as a jammer swept the feeds. Rising tension coiled. The safe house's exits, river dock and back alley, now hazardous blacked-out sections from the storm jamming signals, infiltrators using the environment's chaos. Ji-yon grabbed Sumin's arm, pulling her toward the inner bunker door. "We bolt to the river path. Swim if needed." But Minho blocked the way, his presence a wall of restrained power. "No, convoy's mine, delayed by the clash but closing. Trust the extract, running splits us." His eyes held hers, possessiveness yielding to the push-pull of autonomy, the human conflict raw, her ethics demanding flight from this web, his code vowing protection at any fracture. Tae-woo moved to the monitors, rerouting auxiliary cams manually, crude overrides via wired panels, bypassing the jam. "Boss, visuals. 4 tangos dismounting, fanning the warehouse row, flankers on the pilings." The growl swelled, tires screeching as vehicles braked outside, shadows spilling from doors, suppressed weapons glinting. Minho chambered around, the click echoing like a verdict. "Hold the bunker. Extracts 2 mics. Then we hit Han, break the chain." He touched Ji-yon's shoulder, brief and grounding, the gesture speaking of transformation amid the fray, loyalty forged in fire, outlasting the spoils of power. But as the first shots cracked against the roll-up door, sparks flying from the hinges, Ji-yon spotted a tell on the cam. One flanker pausing to check a phone, screen syncing to the Ledger's rendezvous code. Park's full play, or the pilot's betrayal circling back. And if the extract convoy arrived splintered, would Han's confession expose a final turncoat, one whose knife aimed at Minho's throat? The safe-house bunker shuddered as the first barrage hammered the roll-up door, bullets ricocheting off reinforced steel with metallic pings that echoed like frantic heartbeats. The air inside thickened with the sharp tang of cordite seeping through vents, mingling with the damp rot from the nearby river. Ji-yon crouched behind a stack of crates, her fingers digging into Sumin's arm, the younger sister's ragged breaths hot against her neck. The fluorescent strips overhead buzzed erratically, casting jittery shadows that made every corner a potential ambush point. Outside, the growl of Park's convoy swelled, tires crunching gravel, doors slamming like judgments, the storm's lingering drizzle hissing on hot engine blocks. Minho pressed against the monitor wall, his silhouette taut as a bowstring, eyes flicking between feeds. The cams, wired backups immune to the jammer, showed 4 figures advancing, 2 flanking the warehouse row with suppressed pistols raised, their rain-slicked jackets bulging with extra mags, the others circling to the river pilings, where speedboats idled in the murk, engines muffled by the current's lap. "They're boxing us. Tunnel's a kill zone," he muttered, voice low and edged with calculation. Tae-woo knelt beside him, rerouting power to the bunker's outer defenses. Electrified grates along the alley exit, a crude but effective deterrent drawn from industrial shipping tech, the kind that zapped intruders with a jolt from backup batteries. Ji-yon's mind raced, the Ledger's pages burned into her memory like a map of betrayals. The rendezvous code on the flanker's phone matched the East Bank coordinates. Park's organized strike, not random heat. Her father's treachery had been the spark, but this fire was fueled by Minho's rivals. Counterfeit routes exposed, Tongs from Busan hungry for the Han's smuggling veins. "The pilot, he's the link," she whispered urgently, piecing the investigative thread aloud. His burner synced to that number in the ledger. He grounded the chopper for this, sold the safe house cords for a cut. Exposure cost them time, but naming it aloud fractured the last illusions of seamless loyalty. Minho's gaze snapped to her, the scar on his jaw twitching in the red-tinted glow from an alert panel. "If true, he's done, but we confirm on the extract." His radio spat static, then a voice. Boss, convoys splintered. Pilot's rig flipped the lead Mercedes at the tunnel mouth. 2 down, Han secured but wounded. The words hit like shrapnel. Victory edged closer, but at the price of blood. Minho's men, loyal to the code, paying for a turncoat's ambition. He keyed the response. "Burn the pilot's trace. Full ledger dump to the team. We're holding. Breach on your mark." Tension ratcheted as a grenade clattered against the door. The blast muffled but shaking dust from the rafters, the acrid smoke of flashbang residue curling in. Su-min stifled a cough, her face ashen, the fever clinging despite the safe house's chill. Ji-yeon pulled her lower, the human conflict boiling. Her ethics screamed to shield her sister from this violence. Autonomy demanding they slip the river path alone, but Min-ho's world offered a code. Restraint amid chaos, protection as vow. "We can't wait," she said, voice tight. "The pilings, speedboats mean extraction for them too. If Han talks, Park loses leverage." Tae-woo nodded, slinging his submachine gun. "Ali grates hot, I'll draw fire." He moved like a shadow, slipping the inner door with a nod to Min-ho, the boss's hand clapping his shoulder in silent brotherhood. Gunfire erupted outside, suppressed pops answered by Tae-woo's bursts, short, controlled, the air filling with the ozone snap of the grate zapping a flanker, his scream lost in the fray. Min-ho hauled Ji-yeon and Su-min toward the river-facing bulkhead, a concealed hatch leading to the docks. "Move! Extracts inbound from the West Bend." The hatch groaned open, dumping them into the downpour, the hands chill, slapping their skin like a warning. Rain-slicked planks creaked underfoot, the river's briny reek overwhelming, barges looming in the mist like silent witnesses. Park's boats revved closer, wakes slapping the pilings, but Min-ho's convoy burst from the tunnel shadows. 2 armored SUVs, lights slashing the gloom, tires hydroplaning on wet asphalt. The lead vehicle braked hard, doors flying open as armed figures spilled out, dragging a limp form. Mr. Han, bloodied but breathing, his face gaunt under the sodium haze. "Inside!" Min-ho bellowed, firing cover as bullets whined past, splintering wood. Ji-yeon shoved Su-min into the rear SUV, the leather seats cold and sticky with rain, the engine's roar drowning the storm. Han slumped beside them, eyes fluttering open, recognition dawning in a haze of pain. "Girls, I didn't mean," he rasped, a gash across his temple oozing, the cost of his desperation etched in every line. The convoy peeled out, SUVs weaving through dockside alleys, Park's boats giving futile chase along the water's edge. Min-ho slid in last, the door slamming as they accelerated, his coat torn and knuckles bruised. "Talk, Han. The ledger. Full chain." The boss leaned forward, voice steel over the engine's growl. Their father coughed, blood flecking his lips, the revelation spilling in broken bursts. The auction a feint. Park's demand for daughters as collateral to mask the route heist, but the true architect, the pilot, coerced then bought off. Family threatened in Busan, a sacrifice Min-ho understood too well. He fed everything. "Thermite from yard scraps, codes from your rotations. I forged to buy time, but it dragged you all in." Tears mixed with rain on his face. Loyalty shattered. His greed yielding to remorse under pressure. The convoy hit the open road, sirens distant but closing. Cops alerted by the tunnel clash, institutional limits forcing a clean exit. Min-ho's hand rested on Ji-yeon's knee, brief and anchoring, the push-pull resolving in quiet commitment. "It's over. Park's play crumbles without the ledgers. My team's torching the manifests at dawn." Injury marked the win. Han's wound, Tae-woo's graze from the great skirmish radioed in, exposure of the pilot's betrayal, scarring the inner circle. But the treasure emerged clear. Safety in the found family, trust forged in the fire, a future unbound by debts. A Seoul's skyline rose ahead, penthouses twinkling like guarded promises. Ji-yeon met Min-ho's eyes. No possession, just partnership, their codes aligning, her independence woven into his restraint. Su-min leaned against her, the cough easing in the warmth, while Han stared at the river receding, a man redeemed by confession, if not forgiveness. The adventure's scars lingered, but loyalty and memory outlasted the power plays. In the quiet after the storm, chosen family proved the real legacy. Subscribe to our channel for more incredible tales of loyalty, danger, and found family. See you in the next story.